So, hello, and thanks for joining me right after lunch for a bit of admin sockets. So, what is this about? To scope and tell you my goals and motivation for this. So I always like to put it on this triangle of like if we have understanding Ceph in one corner, tool crafting, and understanding the tools. This presentation will be mostly about something between tool crafting and understanding the tools, not so much about like, okay, this is a deep insight into Ceph. Yeah? This is about how to get this insight by crafting tools and looking at what is already there. So, also a brief mention, I don't really show much code on the slides because code on slides usually, cramps things up. So there is a companion repository. I will share a link to that later. It has all, more data, more scripts, everything. And with that, brief table of contents. What will this be about? We'll first do a bit of intro. What is admin sockets? What is Asoks? How to get to them? Then a map. Try to do a bit of like mapping the territory. What is there, how to find, how to explore, what is to find more. And finally, pick a couple of admin socket commands, gems, and try to polish them into with some tooling. So with that, let's start with some intro. So what is Asok, admin socket? So to quote the Ceph docs, the Ceph admin socket allows you to query a daemon via your socket interface. This is mostly a Unix socket. It's a file that lives next to all your Ceph services somewhere. There are many like it, but this happens to be Ceph's way to give you inside information about daemons and services and clients. Yeah, I put on a couple of examples for others. Yeah, a good analogy would be /proc or /sys on your Linux system. But there's others. Redis has an info call. What you usually get from them is like metrics, but also, state information, things like that. So to start, I always like to look, what is the most simple way to interact with things? And this command above here allows you to run a help command on, for example, Rados gateway. So it is enough to actually use netcat and a bit of JSON. So in this case, you give it a prefix. This is like the highlighted help here. You can also specify a format. You can like JSON, you can like JSON pretty, JSON ugly, whatever. And it's enough to use netcat to call that. The tail-c +5 here basically means the return from an admin socket starts with a 4-byte integer that tells you like how much data you get back. And for simple things that don't output too much data, you can get away with just cutting that off. Below here is a brief example for what you, for example, get back from help. You get JSON back, you have a key value, you get the command and some text. But this is usually not the way to interact with admin sockets. What you usually do is there's these two commands, ceph daemon and ceph tell. Ceph daemon on a file name allows you to like command line access to the admin socket. There's also ceph tell, which is pretty interesting because it doesn't use those Unix domain files, but rather goes over libRados. So you can actually use those commands over the network, and that is a pretty powerful thing to do because if you have like a ceph.config and a keyring, you can access all of your services, right? It doesn't necessarily go for clients, and clients in the sense is, for example, an RGW. The Python code below here is the rough the rough Python core like implementation of how ceph tell works. So there's an OSD command, a mon command, a manager command, and these send out the commands to the server side of the admin socket interface. So they vary a bit by how to specify a target, but in general, they're how it works. Yeah. There's also the MDS you can call with that. The example is a bit longer, so I cut it out here. So what is on the other side? Yeah, on the other side in a Ceph daemon, to add another Asok command, what you need is basically 3 ingredients. You first need a command description. There's a mini language for that. Yeah, you tell it like, okay, this is my command, and the parameters are, for example, here Ceph string. It's required now. You need to register it, and you need to specify something that takes the call. Yeah, in this case, there is this call function, and in most Ceph implementations, you will see like an if command equals to something, do a thing, yeah, and return it. It's actually very easy to add new admin socket commands. So that was the first part. And the second part is let's try to map a bit of the territory. What is there? 179, that is the number of admin socket commands I found. So I wrote a bit of the script, yeah, to iterate all the services, get all the help, yeah, and count it, yeah. So 179, and I encourage you to do a bit of exploration on that, and I'll tell you in 2 slides why. So, of those commands, where to find those, yeah. So this is like an intersection graph, yeah. The most important thing to know about this graph is that where is the dot? It means this is a unique set of command replies. So to make this short, there's a black dot for OSD and the 75 bar up there, that means the OSD has 75 unique commands. The MDS has 43 unique commands, and all of them combined, there's like a set of 25 commands that you can use on everything. Yeah, so this is all to just get like a bit of a map, where to find what. So, I mean, how to summarize almost 180 commands, and I like to call this slide like postcards from Asok lands. Yeah. This is just simple word clouds over all the admin socket commands you find on the various daemons. So what you can learn from that is, yeah, if you look at OSDs, you will find a lot of like blue store, bluefs, inside commands. Yeah. The the MDS deals a lot of like this file system related things, yeah, and like RGW can get perf information, like interact with the cache there. And what else? So this is something like a coworker brought me to. Like, are they like all documented in the docs? And I was like, I haven't actually checked that. So I wrote another script and looked at that, and turns out almost half of the commands don't have a single mention in the docs. So I'm not saying that to like, I don't know, shit on the docs. It's more like, oh, there's actually things to find. Yeah. So if you are like, okay, I need a certain insight, and there's nothing in the docs, it's totally worthwhile to just call help on an OSD and find like, oh, this could be it. Yeah. It has a help string, so it's like, it's not completely like undocumented and very opaque, but it's worthwhile exploring those interesting stuff there. Yeah. The other thing is, if I start with looking in a thing, I always try to look at the things that give me like the most bang for the buck first. And I was like, what is like the common commands that are everywhere? Those are probably worth like knowing and learning. And there's this 25 command set. And I mean, to go briefly over it, what you can get from every Ceph service or Librados client is the version. You can interact with the log, yeah. You can say like flush your log out, whatever you have in memory. You can query the configuration database that this particular service sees, yeah. Ask it like, I don't know, what is it that is configured? Can also change the runtime configuration. You can get help, you can get this get command description, is basically machine readable information around something you can build a command line interface of. Yeah? There's raise, I put like this little thing there because you can raise arbitrary I'm not sure arbitrary, but you can raise Unix signals to a service. So if you want, like, you can do cephtel raise and like crash your services over that if you want to. You can get information about the memory pools. You can get all the performance counters. You can get the performance histograms. There's perf, there's counter, and there's messenger dump, which we'll learn a bit more. It's a rather recent one. We'll learn about that more later. That allows you to get insights into the RPC layer of Ceph. So to round this off, those are my favorites. I like to look at objector requests, for example. This one tells you what are all the objector requests that are in flight. Yeah. So is there a write full, all the other things that are in flight? It gives you a list of those. So you can like look, are they like stuck or something like that? This is the client side. The opposite side on the services is dump historic ops. It's a whole family of one. There's dump historic ops by duration, slow ops. These tell you, for example, on AOSD, what is currently in flight, what, I don't know, where does it spend time? It's a very detailed one. There's counter dump, which just gives you performance counters. If you take that, for example, a bit of JQ and the Unix watch command, you get yourself, can you easily like rig up some kind of like Ceph operation top tool. I also like config show. I mean, it's simple, yeah? Just query a thing, like give me your common config. I always like to do that to verify that does this thing actually see the config that I set somewhere? Because there is a lot of config sources, yeah? So, with that, does this work? Yeah. The next chapter, yeah? Let's pick a couple of gems and try to polish them. And I hope I can convey my I don't know, love for tools and visualizations with that. Right. So, as I said, I always like to start with the common commands first. So, these green ones here, these are the ones we will check out on the next slide. So, we'll look at the config and messenger dump, which there's this little thing there. It will come with tentacles. So I think it was merged beginning of this year. And yeah, so let's start with a simple one. Yeah, for example, config diff. You can ask every Ceph service and client, what kind of view on the config do you have and who changed what? Yeah, so on the left side is the keys. Yeah, you get like this gigantic JSON. Has a key for all the config keys, yeah, and the value and this object you find there, it tells you like what kind of config source saw what, yeah. So it's analogous to the config hierarchy you have in Ceph, you know, like there's like defaults are overwritten by mon. I'm not actually sure if that's the order. The order is defined in the config, so yeah, things override each other. Yeah, and you can see what every value is. But looking at this JSON is no fun, so what you can do, for example, is make it like in a nice grabbable line. Yeah, this is a tool what I like to use for that. It tells you what is the final value, but also who changed the default to what. That is a simple way to visualize that. Or you can like use diff on that. Yeah, if you, for example, diff the default to the final values, you get this nice like known output to see like how does this thing diverge. Or another simple thing you can do with just this bit of JSON is becomes like configuring a config drift alert. Yeah, so what I tend to forget is after I set debug 20 on a thing to unset the debug 20. Yeah, and with just like a bit of shell, you can get yourself like a thing that Prometheus understands and tells you, like, oh, there's like these two config values that are not that are overwritten. Yeah, before it we had this. You can runtime override config values. All right, so let's look at a more complicated example, maybe, and one that I would say without tooling is a bit hard to digest. So messenger dump. Oh, what does this thing do? So you can get in Tentacle for every daemon and service and client, you can get connection information, statistics of a running Ceph messenger. Okay? Everything runs this Ceph messenger, and included in this information is like all the connections, their state, the dispatch queue, listen sockets, and also TCP info. This is just kernel statistics for every TCP connection that includes round trip time, retransmit counters, like all the nice things you need to debug network information. And I'm not going to show you the JSON, it is big, but a couple of insights you can get from that, or tools around that. So the first is like a simple one. Well, I told you like all the connections are in there. So if we run like the script on RGW, we'll see there's 3 messengers. They are connected to all the OSDs. You can get the ports. You can get the messenger, this nonce. This is the long number, but it's the end. But you can also, as I told you, there's TCP info insights, and you can put it on a matrix. Yeah. So this is a tool. It's also in this repository I talked about at the beginning. So if you, for example, this shows you the maximum round trip time between 2 services. On the left side there's the service and the destination is on below. So what you can read from this thing here is, well, for example, our Rados gateway on top here is connected to almost everybody else and observes quite different latency. Yeah? And you can use a thing like that, for example, in a cluster to see, oh, is there like a hotspot of latency somewhere? Is there something I need to drill down further? Yeah, it's just like nice insight, readily available from your Ceph services. There's another tool that you can now watch a recording of me clicking around, and it's called CNTop. I wrote that to make this information digestible. What you can do with that is, I don't know, top-like, browse, whatever the Ceph messenger is doing right now. What are the connections? You see the encryption type of the connection, the compression settings, also this TCP info stats. Just gonna let that running for a second. Yeah, this, for example, the round trip times. Can hit refresh and see how they are progressing over time. Yeah, so all right, with that tool, I'd like to start like recapping what we just like went through. So it started out with like going into what is the protocol. That like the main tools are Cephtel, Ceph daemon, but it's also very easy to access the Asok from the Braiders, for example. I try to map the territory a bit, where to find common commands, that there's a lot of uncharted territory, especially that not all Asok commands are really documented, but it is very worthwhile exploring them. My appeal to everybody is like craft more tools. I think most of the information is actually gold, but a bit like hidden in gigantic JSON. I put out this example of like how to make, for example, config diff a bit more useful, and ultimately went into this messenger dump, and you can extract, for example, an RTT matrix, and showed you the CNTop tool. So also a thing. So for me personally, the gem is not a single thing, but the interface itself. Yeah, just because this is a way to get like the insight, like get the understanding of like how is something like currently working, where is it stuck, and I think we could use better tools around that. So also always like to close up with a couple of like what's next. So this is like roughly on my bucket list. I would so love to have a kind of like K9-esque tool for Ceph. It's very like popular in the Kubernetes space. Maybe turn the CNTop tool I just showed into that. Yeah. There's also like tools like btop or glances that, I mean, would be amazing to have like a Ceph plugin for that, right? To see charts of what is going on. Just in general, to have like maybe a bit more modern version of Ceph-S, right? Visualizing this dump historic ops would be great. I think there's a lot of insight in there, but it's not like, it doesn't scream at you. And for me personally, I always want like the insight. It has to come to me from tools or help me to discover it. It's as part of that journey, Pydantic schemas for all the commands would be amazing. I already wrote them for Messenger Top, and I think we have at least like inside Clyso a couple of like Pydantic things here and there as part of some other open source tools, but a collected thing would be amazing. Well, and with that, this QR code thing leads you to the repository I talked about. Yeah, it has like more infos and things. And yeah, thanks. I think we have time for questions and, I don't know, sharing favorite tools, things like that. Thanks. There is, yeah. You'll find the link in that. Yeah, it's not really great Googleable, right? Yeah, I noticed. There is. It's open source online.
One thing I will mention, the RBD mirror daemon has very helpful Asok commands. So if you use RBD mirror, so.
Oh, it has its own.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I missed them. Thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
Great.
Hey, just wanted to ask, is there any overhead to fetching the data from the admin socket, or is it just the data that the daemon already has, so there is like nothing to, if we are fetching the historic ops or something, hits something, that would be problematic, or the daemon has the data already, so it's not an issue, if you know?
I would summarize it as it depends, of course, yeah. I mean, the minimum is you need to convert the data. Yeah, you might have to pull a mutex to, I don't know, get a consistent view on a couple of data structures. So in general, no, it's not free. But it's hard to tell in general.
It is not very free in some cases. For example, boost or allocator dump will just try to dump you in one JSON file entire state, which can be multiple megabytes. Causes all the problems that you can imagine, starting with taking the log for that time.
There was a talk earlier about Clyso analyzer and auto tools. Are there any plans of like these tools using the Asok socket to have like more insight about the cluster and better like details about it, and then analyzing that?
I think they are. I'm just looking for if the two that could answer it better than me are here. There aren't. I think there are plans for that, yeah.
Nice. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thanks again.